Now there's so many avenues to get information.
How, over the course of 20 years, are you able to stay up to date on changes?
As the years went on, I became an MVP. It was more, you learn more by doing and experimenting.
What would you say to somebody that is potentially thinking about pursuing the title of MVP?
To me, it's not just a title, it is a family. One of the really cool things that Joel and George and I were able to do, we built our own little community within CRM Audio.
Do you have an all-time favorite episode?
We interviewed Charles LaManna. We interviewed Ryan Cunningham. We interviewed so many people. I got to speak at a Microsoft conference because I knew field service as well as I do.
You've kind of become a master of a niche within this niche.
Is it good for someone to focus on a single niche? No. Is it good for you to have a specialization? Yes. Having that specialization really helps because that opens all kinds of doors. That's the big difference.
Your I don't knows make your I do knows meaningful.
You do that, no one's going to have a problem with you. Every customer thinks they're unique, whether they are or they're not. I was a customer before I was in consulting. I totally did that.
Ultimately, what we're trying to do is solve customer pain points. You really have to dig sometimes and be like, okay, well, why?
One of the questions I often ask is,
hey, welcome to the Citizen Developer channel. My name is Griffin, the host, and today I have with me a friend, mentor, leader, Shawn Tabor. Shawn is currently a director of CE delivery at Hitachi Solutions, which is a Microsoft partner that specializes in delivering global IT solutions, specifically and largely related to Microsoft Dynamics and the Power Platform. And as a director in the CE practice, Shawn is directly involved in overall project delivery of the CRM projects that Hitachi is delivering on. And specifically in certain industries like non-government regulated industries such as manufacturing and financial and professional services, With over 20 years of Microsoft Dynamics experience, including 15 years working with manufacturing companies and 13 years working with financial service companies, Shawn has truly developed an expertise and passion for all things Dynamics. Shawn, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. This is cool.
Yeah, this is a conversation I'm particularly excited for. No shade to the other guests, right? But I specifically am excited for the insights that you're going to be able to provide because the length and of your career. And I mean, myself, and I'm sure there are a lot of people like me where we are, young and bushy-tailed into the space. And I mean, I was introduced in this space in the new interface. The classic interface is foreign to me. And I know for a lot of people in this space, that's weird. And so I specifically wanted to talk to you about, the Microsoft Dynamics and the introduction of the Power Platform. The technical skills are always changing. How, over the course of 20 years, are you able to stay up to date on changes, on technical expertise?
Right. So throughout my career, that process has evolved a little bit. So when I was first starting out, in a similar boat as you, I really dove into blogs, and we didn't have YouTube at the time. Oof, God, I feel so old.
Yeah.
But I really dug into blogs. Right, really got into blogs, read up on blogs, did a lot of trial and error myself, things of that nature. But as the years went on, and I became an MVP. It was more, you learn more by doing and experimenting and collaborating with others and understanding their experiences and there's different motivations to learn that. So you could have the motivation, I need to know this for my job, or I need to know this so I can communicate like you're doing on your channel. I need to know this because it's an up and coming functionality that I haven't implemented yet, but I need to be able to speak intelligently on it. So now there's so many avenues to get information through YouTube, through TikTok, through Instagram, through blogs, it's endless. The resources that are now available, which is fantastic. But really for me, a lot of it is trial and error. In the role I'm in now, it really is dependent on my team and people like yourself, so that I can understand not only what the core functionality is, but now I've kind of pivoted a little bit to understand what the business context would be for using that capability, instead of the back in the day, ooh, this is cool. Like when Power Automate first came out, I'm like, wow, this is cool. Let's just make some flows to do stuff, right? To learn the different functions and the different options, how you can branch a flow, how you can do this. Now it's more, okay, how can these functions within the system really enable businesses to do more? That's kind of the context I'm in now.
Yeah,
Very
absolutely.
long-worded answer. Sorry about that, but
No, that's perfect. I would attest to myself that, the learning the curriculum of how to build a business rule is very different as opposed
mhm,
to actually getting into the Powerhouse Maker portal
yeah,
and looking at the different options. Or I mean, we're not even talking, expression syntax on flows. I
yeah,
couldn't imagine
yeah.
trying to learn that without, trial and error and hands-on experience. You mentioned you refer to blogs, YouTube. You got any particular creators out there you'd like to shout out and give their flowers, I guess?
Um,
This is a
blog.
question that's on the spot, so it's
No,
all
it's all good. Content creators that I really have came to depend on are people like Eliza Benitez for Flow, Joe Unwin for Flow, um, Julie Yak and her whole team. A lot of folks in the MVP community. So what brings it to the next level is once you start to get to know and collaborate with these people in the community, you kind of then get that next level of knowledge, because then you're able to interact with them directly. Auntie Pajunen, and I know I said his name wrong. I'm sorry, Auntie. Um, but his blog on on project operations, it has been just a godsend.
Mm.
Yuka Niranen. Um, I could go on.
Yeah,
There's so
yeah,
many people out there. There really is so many people out there. All the stuff that Chris Huntingford and those guys are, and Kyle Hill, those guys are doing. It goes on and on.
yeah. No, I love that, and I appreciate that you have this community and these go-to resources. One thing that I kind of want to also ask you, with being in the space for decades,
Mm-hmm.
that you know the technical skills are going to change, right? How you build this, how you build that. But I think something that is maybe more applicable and the kind of serves a little bit more purpose to the conversations is, what are some skills that you have seen that have been mainstays that have remained the same, and maybe these are soft skills. I'm interested to hear what you have to say. And you know back in the day, as you like to say, back in the day, these skills were applicable and really
Yeah.
valuable, and today, still, these skills are applicable and valuable.
So they're less app specific, right? It's really the ability, and I had to learn this over time. So this isn't something that just the ability to actively listen and look for the real requirements, and the ability to be able to take that and say, okay, I'm hearing a little bit of Power Automate here. I'm hearing a little bit of Azure Function. I'm hearing a little bit of configuration. I'm here, and being able to piece these things together. As more and more capability comes into the system, then you're starting to talk about Copilot, and you're talking about, adaptive cards, and you're talking about, there's so many things you can drive yourself crazy. But being able to have that in your context as the discussion's going, you're able to start formulating ideas and be able to reassure the customer that what they're trying to achieve is possible, one, and two, if you're in that kind of design phase or blueprinting phase, you have a way to articulate the capabilities that are going to enable that functionality for their business, right? So that is, I think, an evergreen thing for a consultant, for an architect, whoever. Just being able to listen and really understand what the requirement is, because they may be giving you a pain point, but then you might need to tweak that into, okay, based on what they're saying, that's an actual requirement. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I feel like I'm learning this lesson right now in my career and
Yeah.
kind of where I'm at, and learning this, because you obviously don't want to challenge the client or
No.
the project that you're on, and you also don't want to necessarily insult their current CRM or their current way of doing business. But a
Or
lot
a
of
prior partner that they dealt with.
exactly, or a
Yeah.
prior partner. I'm finding that a lot of times though, customers, they're coming for a software implementation to fix a potentially and likely bad software. And
Mhm.
considering that what they know, their system being bad, and their perceptions of what it should do, and how their business operates is built on top of that, that you really have to dig sometimes and be like, okay, well, why do you
Mhm.
have these two types of classifications, or
Right.
combine these two, because we're theoretically, with this new business process that we're implementing, there's no
Right.
difference between them, but to them, getting rid of one of those classifications is scary, because it's right
Right.
now an integral part of how they define accounts, for example, right? So
One of the questions I often ask is, when they give me a current state process, right? I I do challenge them a little bit to say, is this the way that your business operates, or is this the way your systems worked? So this is the only way you could do it,
yeah,
because
those
that's
are very
different.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they say the latter, then I say, okay, cool. Then what do you want the process to be? Don't worry about the system. Think agnostic. What's the process that we need to do? And then we figure out solution components to make that work. But that's often that gets them out of their mindset, because a lot of times you're dealing with either people in IT or people in a very specific business org that is, in terms of their silo, that this is their whole part of their process. They don't think end to end necessarily. So you got to bring them into the discussion. You got to help them understand the end to end and what part they're in, so that they know what capabilities they have in and out.
Yeah, and in part of those conversations, I wonder, and I think, considering what I know about you previously, I think you would relate to this, and I wonder your thoughts on this, is the importance of admitting to the customer, to the client, that you don't necessarily know something.
Mm-hmm.
And so a little bit of a transition here, but going from, instead of just like challenging, oh well, why do you do this, why do you do that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
okay, that's one aspect. But also when they're, kind of now asking you questions and
Mm-hmm.
asking you why, and how,
Mm-hmm.
where it's not likely you're going to be able to answer all of those correctly. So in those
Right.
situations, what is your method there?
Well, I look at it this way: customers hire me and my company because of our expertise, right? Where there's an area where maybe me personally, I have not experienced that. Um, I make sure that I understand within my team all the capabilities that we have within our team, so that I can answer in the positive to something that I don't know. So I'll give you an example. Let's say um, I'm dealing with a manufacturing client, and they're dealing with this very specific CPQ situation. Okay. And I haven't come into it. I could tell them, well, I don't know, that looks bad. So typically how I handle that is acknowledge what they said, make sure they're clean and clear, that I heard them, that I understand what they're asking me or stating to me. So repeat that back, and then say, that's an interesting scenario. I'm going to have to do a little bit of research, but I will come back to you on this date, this time with that information. And then you make damn sure that you do that. You do that, no one's going to have a problem with you saying, I got to do some research. Let me get back to you. I'll come back to you on this date. Right. And I've done this historically in my career when I first started out, because I thought I can never pretend I don't know. They can't know I don't know. So I got to make something up. I got to sound smart. Don't try to sound smart. Don't try to sound smart. Because what happens is you try to sound smart, and then you find out that, just doing due diligence, you find out that it's either incorrect or something needs to change. And then you have to go back to them and say, ooh, you know what? I wasn't quite right. And then they start questioning. So if you're upfront and you're truthful and you follow through, no one's going to have a problem with that.
What advice would you have for someone that still doesn't believe you? I guess, they're struggling with, maybe it's imposter syndrome. Maybe it's, they want to be, bring a lot of value, and they obviously care about, the project that they're on. What advice would you tell that person to encourage them? Like, no, seriously, like it's okay to not know everything.
The value of being forthcoming and truthful to your customer and being able to admit shortcomings, but follow through and getting the customer the information that they need far exceeds what short-term gain you might get by them not thinking you don't know something.
Yeah. I heard a good saying, and it kind of, if you say it too fast, it doesn't really make sense, but that your I don't knows make your I do knows like meaningful.
Sure.
When if you every once in a while slip in and I don't know, when you now say I do know, it's a lot easier for people to have trust in that I do know, if that makes sense.
If you're always giving answers, right? Some customers will be like, yeah, they can't know everything. They can't. We are unique, because every customer thinks they're unique, whether they are or they're not. So if you say that you've run into every situation, if you have an answer for every problem, it's just not, it's not real.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So, and sometimes they test you. I was a customer before I was in consulting. I totally did that. Made stuff up to see if they would, throw an answer. And caught many, many, many consultants that did it. Many. So, yeah, customers, they need to protect their interests, so they're going to test you. You have to know that's part of the game. So, by emboldening yourself to be a little bit vulnerable at times, but show your confidence and speak your confidence where you know stuff, be confident. If you don't know, it's okay. Just say, you know what, that's a great scenario. Let me dig into that. Do a little bit of research. And if you think you might have an idea where you're going to go down, totally cool to say, I think we could resolve that with Power Automate. I think we could resolve that with the marketing module. But let me do some due diligence, get back to you to be certain, because I want to make sure we nail this. They're like, cool, okay. But then you just gotta follow through. That's all.
Yeah. Do you have a good example on the top of your head where, and maybe this is where you were consultant, maybe this is where you were the customer, where this honesty particularly paid off?
Let me see. I've got plenty of situations where this happened, but I'm trying to think of a good one where I don't look that big of a dork. So there was a situation on a field service implementation where we were not only implementing field service, but we were also implementing project service automation at the time. It was the precursor before project ops. And what they wanted was basically they handled every install like a project. Like what they did is they installed large cabling systems, right? So you had a service where they would bore the hole in the ground. They would have a service where they're running the pipe. They'd have a service where they're running the cable. You see, and it takes multiple days. So for project service automation, no problem. Multi-day project, cool, not a problem. At the time, field service, multi-day, it did it, but then they were like, well, what happens if we have to, what if we have a rain out? What if we have to push? What do we have to do? And they threw all these scenarios at me. And instead of saying, well, let me go double check on that, I went, yeah, we can handle it. No problem. Yeah, there's a problem. We couldn't handle it. We could handle it, but it had so many manual workarounds that it wasn't really a tenable business solution. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was a goof. That was a goof, and that really helped me reinforce to follow my own advice. Don't get too cocky, and as a result, since I goofed that, the next two times I was very confident, knew 100%. They wanted proof.
Yeah.
Which stunk, because then it's like, damn, I know this one. I goofed on that last one. Yeah, okay, but you know what I mean?
Guys, I promise.
Yeah. You plant that seed, and what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great. Thank you for sharing. To transition us, I wanted to, as a part of your intro, your experience, you have a lot of expertise in the field service capability, as well as expertise in manufacturing and financial service industries. Now, to me, that sounds like Microsoft Dynamics CRM solution development is already a niche. And you've kind of become a master of a niche within this niche, right? And so I guess my question to you is, do you feel like that niching within the niche of Microsoft Dynamics is limiting at all, or if it's actually the ability to grow and to develop a brand and a career in the space? If you are thinking to yourself that you want to get into low-code development or learn about the Power Platform, then I want to personally invite you to sign up for this completely free self-paced course that is going to cover everything you need to know to begin low-code development today. Not too long ago, I was a complete beginner and I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even know what the Power Platform was. The content in this course is handpicked by me so you can understand the basics of the Power Platform and ultimately be prepared to take the PL 900 certification if that's something you're interested in. If you are interested, be sure to follow the first link in the description down below, and do not forget to use the promo code YouTube at checkout in order to get the course for completely free. This is going to give you immediate access to the entire course so that you can start to change your future today. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
So I'm going to answer it from two different points of view. From the consultant or architect point of view, there's a value because it gives you a very focused area of expertise. It gives you a dedicated track in which you need to focus your attention, make sure that you get in as many cycles as you can on projects of that nature, learn as much as you can, because you become that much better at it project over project. Also, when you're in consulting, if you're really, really good at a niche, you're pretty much always working. You're never on the bench, right? Because as long as that work's coming in, you're going to get put on it. So the reason why I focus on field service putting all the cards on the table. I didn't want to do financial services anymore. I really didn't. I spent 13 years in it. Then I spent the first 4 or 5 years in consulting doing financial service implementations. I wanted to do something else. So I focused on field service so that I could get out of doing financial services. Now, flip side, and now that I'm a director, I'm managing people, is it good for someone to focus on a single niche? No. Is it good for you to have a specialization? Yes. You should have enough knowledge across the entire platform so that you can be leveraged on any project, but you should have a specialization to show your focus and your strength. That is always helpful, because then that lends you, from a career trajectory perspective, it allows you to stay working, because you could do any kind of project, marketing, sales, Copilot, Power Apps, whatever, right? If you have a little bit of knowledge in everything, you can work all the time. But what it does give you the ability to do is, as you're wanting to get into those mentoring opportunities, as you're wanting to get into things like if you want to pursue MVP, if you want to do speaking engagements, if you want to do things like that, having that specialization really helps, because that opens all kinds of doors in that kind of sense. I've done so many different, conferences, and, I got to speak at a Microsoft conference because I knew field service as well as I do. And that was just awesome. So
Yeah.
So there's total benefit, but you got to make sure that you measure it. You don't want to do it so specifically that you can't do anything else. You know what I mean? Because then if that business dries up, that market dries up for whatever reason, whether it's COVID or whatever, then that impacts you. You want to make sure you have enough to balance.
And yeah, would you say, and I think the answer to this is yes, based off of what you're saying, that this would be true if your niche was a capability like field service or sales or marketing or customer service, or it would also apply to if you niched in an industry, or if you niched in Power Automate or Power Pages or so to speak. Do you think there's any difference, I guess, there as far as capability versus industry?
There is a difference between capability and industry. Yes. I'll give you an example. A capability would be, let's say a capability is just field service, right? Field service you can implement field service in multiple industries. You do it in health and life sciences, dispatching techs and nurses. You could do it in financial services, where you're sending insurance agents out to wherever they need to go to do, now I can't think of the word, where they're going out and checking damage on cars. I can't think of the name. Or you could do it in manufacturing for depot repair, for repairs of self-manufactured goods. Industry is across all capabilities. So you have something like order to cash as a process in manufacturing. You're not only dealing with sales to start from the lead coming in. You could theoretically, that lead could come in from a portal. So then it comes in, lead opportunity. You're dealing with sales. You're dealing with sales insights, customer insights. You have marketing involved. Then you go into the sale itself. That sale translates to an order in FO. That order becomes, see where I'm going? It's going
An
across
invoice,
the entire,
and got to account for inventory and everything.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you focus on an industry, that's great, but there's a much broader range of components that you need to understand, at least where information is touching. Like being in manufacturing, do I have deep depth and breadth in FO? No. Can I speak intelligently enough about where the information is going through FO just to convey the end to end to the customer? Yeah, that's the big difference.
Yeah, I think too. It's funny. I've in my experience have been working with a couple different customers in a couple different industries, and it's funny too. And I know you've kind of spoken to this previously about how there's, cultures built up around different industries as well. So, people in the manufacturing industry might operate some way, or, some people might really like to work with those type of people, and some people might really not like to work with those type of people, as opposed to, financial service people. I don't know if anybody likes financial service people. I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. I almost was an accountant. All right. So
I love,
who knows?
I was
Who knows?
a registered financial advisor, although I did not actually have customers. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. But yeah, so the reality is that in the cultures that they have could
Yeah.
point someone in the niche, that the word I keep using, that they
Yeah.
could potentially work in. So
Yeah.
no, I think that's great. If there's nothing on that, I'd love to transition. You alluded to for a brief second. You said the letters MVP, right?
Okay.
In your what we were talking about last, as far as niching and
Yeah.
but I mean, I think it'd be remiss to not talk about, the ex reigning MVP Shawn Tabor here, and the impact you have had. And I mean, as a content creator myself, and I mean, who knows where the path will lead at this point in time, but I would love to, pick your brain on the conversation as far as content creation goes. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to put it in my notes. I didn't want to mess it up, but
Yeah.
time Microsoft MVP. Those were from the years what to what? Remind me.
It was. I'm gonna look at my award. It was 2016 to last year.
2022. Perfect. Yeah. Or
So 6 years. I won it 6 times.
Yeah, and you were a part of the reason you were an MVP was you were the founder of what you claimed as the first D365 co-founder, correct? Yeah. Of what you claimed as the first D365 podcast called CRM Audio with Joel Lindstrom and George Dubinsky.
Yep.
I mean, what are some things that you learned through this experience? And I get we could probably talk about this for 2 hours, but I mean, some really cool takeaways that you had from this experience as an MVP.
That was such a cool run. I really do miss that. Doing that podcast, it pushed me to keep my saw sharp, so that I could talk not only to Joel and to George, who know a ton more than I do, but it also helped when we had guests that we could have really good, constructive conversations. We had people from Microsoft on. We had other content creators. We had guests from the business community. It just went on and on. That experience allowed me not only to make sure that I was on top of my game, but it also gave me and Joel and George the opportunity to help other people in our community to go on to the next thing that they wanted to do. I mean, at one point we had a network of podcasts that was like 10 different podcasts under that umbrella. Slowly they, went on to do their own things, which is great. But yeah, it was something. It really gave me that sense of community. It really connected me to so many people. I mean, to this day, I've had customers say, wow, when I go on site, they're like, "Yeah, you're CRM Audio," and it's so embarrassing, but it's so gratifying, And I remember one of my first Microsoft Convergence conferences. Probably don't even remember Convergence. This is way back. It's the business applications conference now, but I met one of the people that I followed on Twitter, and I walked up to him and I'm like, "Oh, I love you on Twitter," and and they're like, "Oh, I know who you are," and I was just shocked. Then fast forward like 5 years, I'm at a D365 UG summit, and I'm at a table for our for Hitachi. And someone comes up to me and they're like, "I love your podcast, and I just wanted to come by and say hi." And it just turned around, and it was just the best. It was just the best. Made me feel really good. And I met so many people. I have friends now in Finland and in Spain and in Mexico and Australia, New Zealand, everywhere. I literally have people that I can call friends. Lots of friends in Canada. It's just, that community is something special. It really is. It really is.
Do you have an all-time favorite episode? We won't tell any of the other guests or anything like that.
No,
but is there
favorite episode of the MVP or of CRM Audio?
Or a small handful?
We interviewed Charles Lamanna. That was pretty great.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah. In person.
At that point in time, was he in his current role, or that was kind of pre-Charles? Dang, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's big hair though. It wasn't the tight hair he's got now, but when he first got into that role, and we interviewed Ryan Cunningham, we interviewed we interviewed so many people. It was just, that was a really cool one. That was a really cool one. But we got to do ones on site. We did a ton via Teams, but that one was great, where we got to actually sit down and pick his brain. So
what would you say to anybody that's maybe is a creative person, feels like they could contribute something to the community? What would you say to somebody that is potentially thinking about pursuing the title of MVP? What advice?
Understand why you want it. When I first decided I wanted to do it, I wanted it because I thought that was something that would help me in my career. That was back when I worked in financial services. That's not the right way. That's not the right reason to do it, to my mind. I didn't get it until I got involved with Joel and George, and we started doing the podcast, and it was really giving back to the community, and it was a little bit more selfless than just how it could help you. Because if you're doing it just because you're checking a box to, help yourself, it comes across. Whereas I think one of the really cool things that Joel and George and I were able to do is we built our own little community within CRM Audio, and it expanded out to the rest of the MVP community, and then to the various conventions and conferences and everything else we did. And if you want to help other people at a distance, you may never ever see them, but you want to have that moment where, in truth, you may not even realize that it happened for you, where someone reads your blog or looks at a video or listens to a podcast and goes, "Oh, that's a great idea. I'm gonna check that out," and it opens a door for them, creatively. That's why you should do it. That's why you should do it.
Yeah, I can definitely attest that getting a nice comment on a video is probably the best thing out there.
Makes your day, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does. And
oh my God,
I find that it's funny you mentioned that. So just today, I was on LinkedIn, and an MVP had said something very similar, shared a pretty long, kind of heartfelt post that was something very similar. And I'm finding a theme amongst MVPs that most MVPs, when they started, creating content, as we might call it, or impacting the community, because I mean, I understand that not all MVPs necessarily have a YouTube channel or something.
Yeah.
But, that the MVP came second. It was like I'm an MVP now. It wasn't like hey, let me go become an MVP. because I want to be an MVP, I need to start, contributing. It was, hey, I just want to contribute. Here's some thoughts. Here's some things that I
Right.
learned, and they're kind of related to maybe biz apps or another area. And over time, that authenticity kind of rolled off, I guess,
Right.
onto their community and
Yeah.
things. So
Yeah. It's when the last year when I'm the second year in my director role, and I was just I didn't have the same kind of bandwidth to contribute, to build content, to do those things. I I I could have probably done the motions to maintain it, but I wasn't giving what I expected MVPs to give. So that was when I was like, okay, it's time. It's time we shut it down. Maybe it'll come back someday, but right
yeah,
now, because it's not to me, in this, I'm just speaking for me. To me, it's not just a title. It is a family. There's a ton of people that you get to meet. There's a ton of people that you network with and you're collaborating with. And they really do become really important to you. So holding up your end of the bargain is really important. And I couldn't do that anymore. So
yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great. I think if I were to add anything to what you say there, it would just take away from it. So I want to, there's one other topic I wanted to discuss with you today. And
yeah.
so a little bit of a pivot. And I mean, I understand that, this principle is larger than just CRMs. Let me restate that.
Mm-hmm.
This principle is larger than just CRM software development. It's larger than software development, and arguably, could apply to consulting at a larger scale. And that is that, when you're consulting and on a project, and we were kind of alluding to this earlier, and I should have brought it up then, that ultimately what we're trying to do is solve customer pain points.
Mm-hmm.
And solving those customer pain points, it's really easy to jump to the conclusion of like, all right, well, let's make some software to solve that pain point. My
Mm-hmm.
question to you, and a concept that I'm slowly realizing, is the balance between solving a customer pain point with software and solving a customer pain point with just user training or business process.
Mm-hmm.
What's your experience in balancing those two to ultimately deliver what you might call, a solution, so to speak, to a business?
You always start with process. Always. You formulate a future state process that clearly articulates what they're expressing to you in the requirement. And then at that point, then you're starting to fill in, is this software? Is this a manual process? Is this an approval that we have to change how they do certain things? You know what I mean? Because not everything's flow approvals, right? Some things got to go to a queue. You got to pick them up. You got to manually triage them. You got to upload a spreadsheet to a folder that integration picks up, and there's still manual things. But it really is, you start with the process, because the process will define what needs to be automated, what needs to be digitized, what needs to be manual, and what needs to be, because there's often times where a customer could have the concept that everything should be automated, everything should be within the system, everything, there's no paper ever, there's nothing. And that doesn't always work, So you have to be mindful of that, and you have to be able to speak to best practices and articulate what that business process should be, whether it's within your system, in another system, or on paper. Because it may very well be they have to fill out a paper form and scan it. They still have to fill out the paper. Maybe it's something we can't do for a regulation for some reason. We can't do digitally. I don't know. But that's possible.
What would you say to a customer that maybe, I mean, I wouldn't say it to their face, but they're being lazy and they don't want to go through the training aspect of their users of fixing a poor business process. And they're like, oh, just build it with software. What would you say to that customer?
We make sure that they understand whatever risks are potentially being surfaced in the manner that they're working. You have to be able to articulate that. If you never want to say they're being lazy, because it may not be a lazy thing. They have other jobs. They have real-time jobs. They can't just focus on the project. So there's ways to handle that. You help them understand the risk. You help them understand that you as a consultant can help them fill gaps where they may have gaps in either users, capability, what have you. But ultimately, you have to help them understand that if you are not getting the things that you need to complete the project, that is going to have an impact to them. And you just have to be truthful and honest and forthright. And then let them make those decisions accordingly.
Yeah. Enough said. With that being said, I think that's great. With that being said, I want to, let's hop off work stuff. I want to transition to the after hours happy hour section of the episode where, we are allowed to talk about anything but work. If you want to try to tie it into work, I guess that's kind of fine, but I don't know. It's not cool if you're bringing up work at the happy hour, right? So, I know I have several hobbies outside of work. I would love to hear something that you're particularly passionate about.
Well, you can't tell by any way, shape, or form that I like Star Wars.
Yeah.
So, I collect a lot of Star Wars stuff. I have a ton of Star Wars stuff. You can see my
I see. Okay, real quick, I gotta steal your time here. So the new Dune 2 movie just came out, right? Or about a month or so ago.
I saw it.
So I had never seen the first one. I obviously hadn't seen the second one. But the movie came out, and so me and my wife were like, all right, let's go on a Dune binge. So we watched Dune 1, and then we went and watched Dune 2 in theaters. And I couldn't help but feel like it was a little Star Wars-esque with, I can't even off the top of my head remember the main character in Dune, but it felt a little, Luke Skywalker-esque, like the Messiah is coming to save their people from, and it's this dystopian, futuristic, whatever. Well, anyway, so I was telling my wife, I was like, you'd probably like Star Wars, because she said she really liked, Dune. She said, and I'm a Star Wars fan. I mean, this is not coming from me. I am not a nerd, it's what she said. And she said that to her husband. So, I mean, but no, I love it.
Well, let me tell you this. If she liked Dune, truly liked Dune, and not because it was Timothy Chalamet, she's a nerd.
Yeah,
because right. that came first. So Star Wars was inspired by Dune. So I hate to break it to her. She's a nerd.
That's funny. So Star Wars, and I also know you mentioned before the show Pokemon Go. I want to give the floor to you, and I don't even think I could do it justice. So go ahead.
It's always on my phone. It's always running. No, it's like you got to have something where you can turn your brain off and just go have fun. I like last night, real life example. I went to a concert. Went to see Death Cab and Postal Service. And in between the shows, I'm checking Pokemon. And my buddy's like, dude, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm checking to see if there's any raids. He goes, we're at a freaking show. I'm like, yeah, but there's some good stuff here, man. We got some good gyms and got some good... So,
that's so funny.
It's what I do.
I love it.
It's what I do.
I love it. Shawn, the conversation has been great today. If somebody wanted to connect with you, what would be the best way that they could do that?
Well, Probably you can connect with me on Threads at CRM Hobbit. I got off Twitter. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. That'd be probably the best way. LinkedIn and Threads. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Both CRM Hobbit.
Awesome. Thank you, Shawn, for being on the show. Thank you to you, the viewer, for sticking to the end of the video. My name is Griffin Lickfelt, the host of Citizen Developer. I'm excited to connect with you guys in the next one.